What's up, guys? So I just wanted to do a chart review for ticker Nvda. I did a video a few days ago basically saying we're looking for a top, and in that video I said within a day or two, and if we went sideways it would be the following week, and then within 2 days we got the signal. So basically, if you look at this daily chart here, you can see we had massive volume. That's a huge reversal candle. We went down over 10%. The only volume that's even comparable is you'd have to go back to this gap up on earnings. Here was some pretty high volume too, but this is definitely going to get follow through. Um, I took away all my drawings for now just so it's more visible, but I'm looking for a lot more downside here. I did exit my puts. I tried to get a little Q with it and get a better entry. But yeah, could have made a little bit more money on Friday. And I am still looking to the short side, but we're getting close to hourly oversold conditions, and there's going to be a good bounce there. So there's definitely people that missed this hype run. They're going to try to get in on a little bit cheaper, but that's going to ultimately set a lower high. So I'm looking for something like we'll break down, and then we get to hourly oversold conditions, bounce up again, reshort this, and we could chop around, or we could just shoot on down, break this low, and consolidate. My thoughts are that this is going to consolidate for weeks or months, but we also do have a conference, I believe it's next weekend, where they're going to announce their products and stuff. And we also have SMCI in the same space that gets included in S&P 500 this upcoming weekend. So that's some bullish catalyst that could prevent further selling that is too fierce. But I'd imagine that this is going to serve as a resistance for a little while. I posted in the chat as well that whole day. Like my entry originally was on this day right here. That was on that video. And I said within a day or two, and you can see how this I ended up playing out. Like I'm expecting a lot more downside from here. Probably maybe even fill this gap, to be honest. But on Friday, I actually called out how I was playing this, and I entered in puts towards the top right here. So how did I play this on Friday? Like I knew this was my original entry, and I posted in the chat basically my reasoning for it. It was an anti-FOMO entry. I gave myself plenty of time on puts, and that way I didn't have to worry about not having a foot in the door if it decided to gap down on some kind of news or the S&P 500 finally consolidated, which is long overdue for. And it allowed me to have a little bit less stress on the trade, and I just had to make sure my next entry was really well done. And I had a feeling that most of these gaps would fill. I mean, like I said in that previous video, we had a gap here and a gap here, and this gap right here is on a weekly chart, so it's definitely likely to fill. We have this big gap down here, so I knew it was getting bubbly, and knew that those would fill over time. And if I made a really good entry on the next one, it would more to make up for anything there. And I made profit on both trades, and I'll show you in 1 second here. So you can see here in the chat, I made that video when I made my entry, and I'm explaining my thoughts and theses behind all this. And then on Friday, that's when I was really looking for an entry. Like I was trying to be patient, give me the setup for it. I also don't want to miss the move though. So the way I played this is I was watching it pre-market, went over 959, and that surpassed the bull flag target. So I was looking next to the 1,000, like I said in the chat. And with how bubbly this is, with the gaps, I expect more than a 10% pullback, likely 20% within a few days. And I showed my position, my original position, and I was red 22% there. And then was saying that I wanted to see high 15-minute volume and that to be sustained, and also for us to break pre-market lows. And I'm watching the charts when it came out. I'm going to put all my drawings on. I know it's messy. I have to clean this up a little bit. But if you look here, when we gapped up, we had pretty considerable volume and another gap again. So we're getting really low support, and it's just gaps all over this chart. So I saw this, and the only other 5-minute volume comparable was back during earnings. So I took a stab at it up here and just made a partial position of my second entry, so not the full amount I wanted to put in there, and I started to flip some daily contracts as a Friday expiration. And then you can see here we have bearish divergence. We had a 91 RSI when we capped up. So that's another reason why I took it, as like we're real extended and we have all these gaps. We also have overhead resistance of 1,000. So I believe that's going to mark a top at this point, because if we surpass the bull flag target, which is down here, that's the next resistance, quote unquote. It's a big round number. And we have price targets for there. So I figured that's going to serve as some sort of temporary resistance. And with the next pushes up, those contracts that I bought down here actually increased in price. So I was making money while the price action was going against my favor because of implied volatility. And I noticed we had bearish divergence. So I just grabbed some dailies. I cut them way too early because they're dailies. And I didn't know what was going to really progress from here. But as soon as we took out a lot of these supports, we just melted. You can see the volume coming in. And I'm posting everything in the chat during this whole play. So I said exactly what I chose to do. I went with the 419, 860 puts. So I went further out of the money than I originally did because I knew we were getting closer to that top. I was getting more and more confident, and I was ready to hit it with size once I got some confirmation, but I was playing the dailies at that point. And here I'm posting. Once we got that waterfall, so 1046, that's right about here. Right about there, my contracts that I entered in over here were already up 20 some percent. And the ones that I had my original entry, they were still red. But then I'm posting here and it's saying about the volume, so you can compare the volume from the previous day to there. You can see right in that chart, it's pretty substantial. It's a big difference. And I said how bulls want to hold the low day. If not, we're just going to start the gap fill. Like I'm constantly posting what we're kind of looking for. So we're trying to see where bulls are going to defend. And as soon as we got that big volume spike going through that gap, that was it. That was the nail in the coffin as far as a short-term top being in and us waterfalling from there. I ended up scaling out of the puts that I had that day for almost 50%. And then, as you can see here, this is my original position, the 900s. And I got almost 10% on those. So nothing huge on those. But like I said, that was an anti-FOMO entry. And then I was going to play my next position. It's going to be my moneymaker. So, so you can see here, even though I intended a lot more of a pullback here, like I said, they also have that conference coming up this weekend. So I'm thinking we had a 5-minute oversold bounce. I'm just going to de-risk this position a little bit, and I cut those. Like I said, they were about 50% when I got rid of them. Or 53% gain. I have it posted right there. And yeah, like I said, I exited my longer term ones that I originally entered just because of the conference. 5-minute oversold. I was looking for hourly oversold. Obviously, like I should have probably swung them. But this locks in the profit, and I can kind of see how it opens up. If it gaps down, I would have made more money. That's okay. It was a profitable trade. And I'll look for the bounce trade on an oversold bounce for the hourly because we are still in a bullish uptrend ultimately. But I'm posting this throughout the day, like my thoughts, what I'm doing, and giving reasonings behind it. My targets were 860 and then 825, and we surpassed my first target. I cut them before that, so that's what I did incorrectly. I left money on the table. If you go to the charts here, though, the reason I'm saying 825 is that'd be the gap fill for the weekly chart right around there, and we have 800. So that's my ultimate target to the downside, and then see if we bounce from there. Like right now, we're trying to find a daily higher low. So if you zoom out here, we're pulling back, and anything above, I would say down here at 770.5 would be a daily higher low. So we can pull all the way back down to here. As long as it's, oops, sorry, that was wrong. Pull all the way down to here, hold this red line right there. As long as we bounce before there, the daily uptrend is intact, but then odds favor us setting a lower high compared to this, and then either short and break to a low or just tighten up for a little while. But as of right now, we still have this weekly gap to fill. So I'm going to go to weekly chart just to show you how that candle kind of formed. Um, Still really overbought in a weekly, almost 90 RSI. Big upper wick, and this is a reversal candle. We have this gap here. So this is likely to fill. I mean, it's not too far down at this point. When is another question. Like we could tighten up here for a little while. Like maybe come down just a little bit and then bounce and try to run into that news catalyst. And then bulls are disappointing because it's nothing substantial. And then we sell off from there. I'm thinking this is it though. This most hyped up sector. It's been what's really carrying the markets. And even this weekly candle has some decent volume behind it. I mean, you can see we've had others, but that was most of that volume came on that Friday. So we'll have to see what happens on Monday and what kind of continuation we get. Um, but we rejected from 1000 psychological, rejected from that bull flag target. And like I said, we have gaps to fill. So I have further downside targets that I'm eyeing up. And the way I'm kind of going to play this is if we gap up inside this bar on Monday, I'm going to re-enter my puts, same dates, and then play that to the downside for more gap fills and just let them ride. And as soon as we get outwardly oversold conditions, so go to this hourly chart real quick, we're nowhere near oversold without extended hours, which is mainly how I trade. But if you put on the extended hours, I think we might have already got, yeah, we already got there. So we're trading lower after hours on Friday, and we'll see what happens come Monday. Like we can get down into the teens, you know what I mean? Like this can go lower, and maybe I'd love for it to come down here, right around here at 800 level, because we traded sideways after earnings, and that's a strong base of support. We get hourly oversold down around here, and I'm a buyer. I'll place some calls maybe like 2 weeks out. I would love it going into that conference too because it's a bullish catalyst, and you know bulls are going to buy that dip. So if we can get down around here on Monday, I'm definitely playing to the upside. But like I said, if we're up here at all on Monday or even after the bounce, I'm definitely reshorting against here, this zone up here. So, yeah, that's just my thoughts. This is definitely a blow off top. We're looking for ultimately more downside, but an hourly oversold bounce into who knows where, reshort and go down. We could, like I said, we could go sideways, but I'm looking for this weekly candle to confirm and for us to ultimately break the low of this weekly candle. So break that low, fill this gap, and then we'll see from there. We're still really far extended from the 20, and we aren't even touching the 8 exponential, and we're overbought. So I'm looking for some consolidation here for a little while. And the market kind of also gave those signals as well. Let me go to Qs real quick. The tech sector, which this helped as well. Doesn't look like anything crazy right now. That's some decently high volume though compared to all these other ones. It's right around the highest volume since all of these insane gains the past 4 months basically to the bull side. And we have this big gap here on the daily on the Qs. So you can see that's on some substantial volume. And we have gaps galore basically. So we have this giant gap that happened after Nvidia earnings. And then a gap here, one down here, there. And who knows which ones will fill and which ones ultimately won't and might take some time. But I'd imagine if you look at this as well, like we have bearish divergence. Like that's a divergent. That's terrible drawing, sorry. That's diverging. It's just slowly building up. And that's over a long period of time. You're talking about from December all the way until March. So usually the longer that builds, the fiercer the correction. So I'm looking for something that's going to last, again, weeks to months. So this will probably fill in the Qs, come down and maybe fill both of those. And I'm not sure if we'll hold this or not. But ultimately on the Qs, I'm looking for at least a retest of this high. And we could all come all the way down here, to be honest, fill this gap even, and we'll still be bullish. Just looking for some consolidation on this. And I think Nvidia is going to be the main driver of it. Obviously, it's in the tech sector. Semis lead tech, and tech leads the market. And we're long overdue for some consolidation in the whole market. We've gone up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 weeks. And we had this one red week here, and then every other low has been higher than the last. This has been an insane rally. So, like I said, long overdue for consolidation. And I think Nvidia could be the straw that breaks the camel's back to start giving us that consolidation. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like I said, we're definitely still really bullish. So even if we pull back on Nvidia, we're just looking for a weekly higher low. That could come down all the way through here. Like we could fill all those gaps I said about, pull all the way back, weekly higher low, tighten up. Like I said, it's a good company, good stock. They're growing. It's not going to zero. But if you're looking for an entry in Nvda, this is not where you buy. You wait till we get that correction and we ultimately get good price. So I would love to add them to my investment portfolio back here, pre-earnings, fill that gap, and start scaling them for long term. You know this company is going to be an absolute beast over the next 5 years. Um, yeah, as far as trading goes, still looking for a lot more consolidation here, especially after that volume in that candle. A bounce ultimately for hourly oversold, reshort that bounce, and let it consolidate until you see some kind of sign or signal that the consolidation is over, and then start accumulating, play the next run up. Like I said, this could last weeks or months. Um, yeah, we'll just have to see what happens on Monday and see how this plays out. But this is pretty much all I'm watching for the whole week. This and then SMCI, but SMCI wasn't as bad. But they also have a catalyst, which I made a video on that last week as well. That this is the date that get included to the S&P 500. So right now we have all this extra buying pressure from the ETFs pushing it up. So I don't think it's going to sell off hard until that's done. And then on this date, they're no longer buying into the ETFs. They'll still increase their positions or decrease it, whatever, but the main buying pressure is gone. So at that moment, all that support, buying support is gone, and I think that's when it's going to come down here and fill all these gaps. You can see we had bearish divergence. I mean, that high was insane. It was in, I think, 94 or something, RSI. And any high we make here, which we're making now, you can see that the indicator is making a lower high, price is making a higher high. That's divergence. So that's going to correct with most likely price correction. Usually it can happen or get negated with time, but in my view, I don't think that's going to happen at all. This also has a weekly gap right there, so that's going to fill. Our weekly chart's still at a 94, so massively overbought. The price target I saw was 1300 and 1350 by analysts. You can see on this candle right here, the high was 1229, so we got close to it. We could still push up into that bullish event, but ultimately this would be a short for me too. I would go April/May contracts, give it plenty of time, and let it do its thing. I think the hype to all this is going to be all said and done. At that point, you had the conference, you had the S&P 500 inclusion, so there's nothing more until the next earnings, which could be good, but with how extended we are, I'm still definitely expecting us to come down, fill some gaps, test some moving averages. We're really far from the 20. So I think the top for Nvidia short term is in, and if it makes a new high, it's going to have divergence. So I'm going off my thesis that the short term top is either in, or if it makes a new high, it's going to be that. I don't think we have much more juice to squeeze out of this for right now until we consolidate. Nothing goes up in a straight line forever. Even the best companies, they go up and they'll pull back, establish bases of support, and then continue forward. So with this stock, I haven't really looked into it too much, but I'd imagine all these gaps fill, just to be entirely honest with you. Just a matter of time. This one, definitely more so than the other. But this could easily come down and break this low here. Is my original take on this was I was looking to add, if I was going to go along this company at 400 to, I think it was upper 500s per share. And that's just based off my previous analysis that we had this little base down here, upper 400, sorry. We had this base down here. So this is probably where I would buy for sure. And we had all those months we traded sideways. So yeah, I think this is also going to be a really good short. But my focus right now is on Nvda. This I wouldn't try to short until the S&P 500 inclusion is over. Maybe get it the day or two before that, and you can get your foot in the door. But I think both of them are going to be really good shorts for gap fills. This one's probably going to pay out more money though. So I might switch my focus over to here. I'm not sure. I'm going to play it by ear going into tomorrow. If this isn't selling off and Nvda is, and we're hourly oversold, I'll play that bounce. So it's definitely situational going into the week. But these are the two tickers I'm really watching and going to watch the market as well as far as what that's doing. Um, yeah, I just wanted to do an update on this ticker as well as SMCI because they're in the same space and just show a little bit what I post throughout the day in the Discord. Like I said, I'm constantly posting my thoughts pre-market on what I'm eyeing up. Maybe not the overall market, but a brief analysis and kind of the trade setup I'm looking at. But if you want to join, it's completely free. I didn't really work on it too much. I just posted in the free chat all day long. So if you want to join and learn, ask questions, feel free. And until next time, I wish you the best in the markets.